So
Well,
welcome to our workshop Wednesday. Gosh, that's a
inaugural voyage of
that's right.
Workshop Wednesdays. So please bear with us as we try to figure out what actually this is going to look like and what it's going to sound like and how it's going to be working. But what is the goal here of this event? We're going to do it every week, right?
We're going to meet every week and we're going to pick different topics that are hopefully things that'll intrigue you, that you can ask questions and give you some insight on where we're coming from. We both have years and years of experience with QuickBooks, me on the outside, Dan,
On the inside,
and back to the outside again.
right? It's a revolving door. Yeah.
That's right. So you're in good hands with QuickBooks experts when you're working with us. And today's topic we wanted to discuss with you is what you're doing. You know, COVID has been here and settled in, and we're all trying to figure it out. One of the things, since my business launched in actually in 2010 when I went out on my own, about 5 years into it, I started using more and more of these remote accesses. So it's real familiar to me, but I also realize that many of our clients, they're used to working in brick and mortar. So we have come up with many different ideas of how this looks, and the landscape of it has changed so much over the 10 years that CBG's been in business. One of my favorites that I like to use was LogMeIn, but honestly, the pricing has gone kind of crazy. What types of remote access do you like to use, Dan?
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's really what this is kind of focused on and all about is that, um, the drive to working remotely has really shifted into overdrive because of the current environment. Um, some things that people were thinking, well, this will be a someday thing, has turned into, well, it's a today thing, or it's a yesterday thing, which is even worse because now people are trying to play catch up, right? So you've got, in our opinion, you have like four options when it comes to wanting to work remotely, and we just wanted to start a discussion with the Abo group. What does that look like for you? So something like Zoom, has kind of taken the forefront, which is the log me in of old, or the WebEx of old, a way for you to be able to remote into your client's location like you're sitting there, is one way, to work remotely. I can sit here in Tucson, and Carrie can be there on the East Coast in South Carolina, and I can remote into her machine and work like I'm sitting at that machine. So the commute is awesome. I can just sit here and be over there or over there, whichever way you are. I'm not sure which way I'm oriented. So that's one way. There are a variety of ways that are out there. There's Log Me In, there's Team Viewer, there's Zoom, but all of those have their
Right.
pros and cons, right?
That's right. So back to me. So LogMeIn to me was a really useful tool when I first launched my consulting business, because I was able to go on site virtually, but it took a little bit of setup. It wasn't easy to set up. So I usually would go to the site, set it up, and you had to know the Windows user password, login and password. So I might hit a couple glitches. So once I got it set up, just like we find with QuickBooks, once you get it set up, it's much easier to use. It allowed me a way to remote into a customer's computer, like maybe an extra one that they're not in, whenever I want it. So maybe I needed to work at 3 a.m. on somebody's computer to close out the books, to do a rebuild, to do something that we didn't want to kick everybody out of. So LogMeIn, TeamViewer, those sort of unattended remote accesses have a place, but they used to be free, they do require an investment. However, what we've learned is that we're able to do with Zoom a screen share. Now you can't exactly do a screen share if it's 3 a.m. So you want in your arsenal these two, at least these two options. And Zoom isn't the only one. It's really the one I love. There's Blue Jeans, there's GoToMeeting, there's whatever. But thank goodness, one of the benefits, I don't want to say that COVID's been a good thing, is that Zoom's become popular. So I'm able to reach my client base easier and faster because I'm already used to it. But along the way, we've learned how to teach people how to use it, how they're fumbling through and so forth.
And what we're really kind of talking about these first few ones is when you have a client who's using desktop QuickBooks or a desktop software where you don't have the anywhere access like QuickBooks Online has. We just be invited as the accountant and poof, you're in. So that takes a lot of the operational or setting things up pieces away when you're using QuickBooks Online. So it certainly is an option for working virtually, but is that always the best thing for your client? Like if your client is used to using QuickBooks desktop, thrusting them into QuickBooks Online, whether they may come kicking and screaming to that environment when they're used to doing things in QuickBooks desktop. So what's another option to bring desktop into the hosted environment or into the cloud is through a hosted environment. So, Carrie, talk a little bit about those options.
So yeah, so that's another option where you actually do like a remote access. You can use Bright Networks as the preferred vendor that Intuit has. There's other options. You go with what you want, what you're comfortable with, but it allows you. It's again like LogMeIn. You do have to do a setup, but once you're in, it's real easy. So in fact, our team, we're all remote. So if anyone needs to access our QuickBooks file, they do it through a hosting provider. So it makes it feel like it's in the cloud. It's not exactly in the cloud like QuickBooks Online, but it makes you feel like you're in the cloud. So this allows, I'm a big advocate on if the client's in desktop, there's a reason. There's some features that you can't get in online that you can get in desktop, and there's some growth and so forth. So if the client is used to desktop, just because you are a QuickBooks Online advocate doesn't mean it might be a right fit for them. So always, especially now when budgets are tight, right fit your client and do the best by them. And if you don't really know desktop, in ABBO, there's plenty of people you can partner up with, and maybe they don't like online because it's, what do you call it? It's like a difference between a cat and a dog.
Yeah. Desktop is a dog, and QuickBooks Online is a cat. And if you're a dog person, you don't like cats. And if you're a cat person, sometimes you don't like dogs. But if you like both, then by all means, use what works best for you. But sometimes, cats, they tend to snuggle around your feet, and you have to bend down and pick it up. And sometimes they scratch you.
Yes. So just be careful where you go. And as a consultant, you always want to recommend and work with the products you're most familiar with, but do team up and partner up. That's my favorite thing, with people that, love and embrace QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Desktop, whichever cat or dog person.
So the hosting is really the best of both worlds. It allows you to take the features and functionality of desktop without the client needing to learn something brand new by going to QuickBooks Online, but they get the anywhere access that online has. So I was talking to a guy in the Virgin Islands who, he was thrust into this arena of, okay, what do we got to do? But taking their enterprise version and turning it into QuickBooks Online was just, that's the learning curve. That's, they weigh the options, and they may go one way or the other, depending on, okay, this is real easy to do, or maybe we're not using all the things that we thought we were using in enterprise, but easily you can just add in hosting. Now you've got the same thing that we were using, but in a different environment and a way to do that. And to your point, Carrie, there are tons of different hosts that are out there. They're all, vetted hosts, so that as long as they, kind of like being a QuickBooks Pro advisor, if you are an Intuit vetted host in the Intuit hosting platform, you pretty much get an idea that any host that you choose there is gonna work for you. Whichever one you choose. Doesn't have to be Right Networks, or it doesn't have to be Skyline, or Go to My ERP, or whatever, whatever the list goes on. You can choose any one of those and they'll work for you.
Another thing to keep in mind too, I mean, being budget conscious, there's a lot of training to shift someone from a desktop product, whether it be the Pro Premier or Enterprise, which is our huge, the one that is our flagship product. If you move a customer that's used to Enterprise to QuickBooks Online, they're going to be really frustrated. But if you have somebody that's on Pro or Premier and you switch them over to Online, it really depends. But to open up that whole idea of training, and training can be an average of $150 an hour. They might not have the budget for it. You don't want their employees any more stressed out than they are. So they may be watching their numbers on who they can stay, keep in business or keep as an employee. And the last thing you want to do is add a burden because it's convenient for you to access them. So explore those options. So there was another one I want to mention that is really good for the mom and pop shop. That's one man, one user. You become a pro advisor and you have a license as well. And that's QBox. And I do not personally have familiarity with it, but Dan, you do. So I'm going to throw that baton back to you.
Throw it over to me. Yeah. So the easiest way that I can talk about QBox or compare it to something in real life is it's like a library book. Right. So the data is stored in the cloud, and that's what the QBox service actually provides, is the ability for you to store the QuickBooks data file, the QBW file, in the service, in the cloud. And then and you can set up this for multiple clients if you're managing multiple clients, and then you can you check it out. Like you access your QuickBooks installed on your local copy or your local computer, and then it just checks out the data, copies it locally, and then you work in your data, and then when you're done, it automatically synchronizes it back up into the cloud, returns the library book, so that they can access their data the same way they would do go to the library, check out their book, work in it, and then when they're done, it copies it back up. So it's kind of like ping-ponging the data back and forth, but without having to send anything. So you're just using the service to act as that, getting the data back and forth. And there are other options, like the accountant's copy process, and where you can send the data back and forth or make a backup. And this takes a lot of that setup and the operationalizing of moving data back and forth out of the equation. And there are the challenge with that is that if you work in the data and they work in the data, okay, who wins, right? Like then you have data that's not synchronized, right? So that's what that does, is while you have the data, they can't access it. While they have the data, you can't access it. But there also is a multi-user option as well that does allow you both to work in it simultaneously. But then, of course, there's a cost for that. So if this is something like, the 3 a.m. Mom and pop piece of things where you're going in, QBox might actually be a good solution for that.
That's right. And I think that, just if this is the right solution for someone with really low budget, one man shop, they're not in QuickBooks all the time. This is a really cost conscious option, but don't hold back on exploring hosting to save your customer money, because it might just be time to do it. And they're going to be more efficient. They'll, they don't have to have, they can actually save money if you think about it, if their employees could work from home. So they're saving on the brick and mortar, bringing everything home, and then the expense for hosting is a whole lot, generally a whole lot less than it would be for rent. Another thing to keep in mind, I made a note so I wouldn't forget. Zoom is a super great tool for two things. In addition to accessing someone's data file, it doesn't even matter what version they're in. Imagine training and you don't want to be next to them. What if they're sick, right? So you just remote in. You can have pull up your QuickBooks online. You can do share screen, show me what you're looking at, and it's as though you're over their shoulder. And I remember when I would go on site because clients kick and scream. Today, they might be a little more flexible on let me remote in, which is a good thing.
Kicking, but not screaming.
Right. So it saves that travel time and money and everything. But it's better training because I would often have the customer say, here, sit at my keyboard. And then, I mean, they would take the chair and wheel me right up to it for me to fix it. And really, you want to show them how, like teaching a man to fish. So it can be a great tool for that. And it's also a really good tool because you can see us, you can see our eyes, you can tell that we're not sitting here making up stuff. We're giving you information. So it's a good sales tool so somebody can understand and feel like they know you and trust. It builds trust because letting someone in your files is kind of scary. So if you do everything from the phone, imagine you put yourself in the customer's shoes. It does help build that credibility.
Yeah, and when my cat decides to jump behind me or something like that, they actually know what the crashing noise is.
They don't think he threw his phone on the floor.
Exactly. So that's really kind of what we want to encapsulate these workshop Wednesdays to be, just a discussion component or piece of that. You know, just we'll have a topic, we'll chat about it, and if you're not able to join us live, we put it into the ABO Facebook group. Just continue the conversation there, and
Right.
Carrie, we're gonna put in some blogs and some other resources that we've kind of come up with that would help with this kind of topic of, you know, working remotely and how to best fit that for your clients.
I need to make a special shout out. So in addition, I'm going to put some blogs in there about working remotely that I wrote. I mean, as soon as COVID was hit, we saw a lot of people struggling from home. You know, like Dan has his cat leap over his head every now and then. You have kids screaming, I need a diaper change. I mean, it's embarrassing when you're on the phone. So we have 2 blogs that we'll share tips and tricks on how to get through some of these pains. And then the other thing is Dan has reinvented, rewritten, and redone our most favorite topic. Before I let him explain that, I want to suggest that you, during your downtime, you're not commuting, you have more time, become a certified pro advisor in all the products. Open up your toolbox to cover all the products, and that'll make you more successful. Or, of course, partner up. But on the topic of certification, Dan, can you please close us with our new and exciting class that we have launched?
Yeah, so on School of Bookkeeping, which you can sign up for a free month. We have a brand new course of how to pass the certification exam for both the core certification as well as the advanced. Now, what these aren't is answer keys, but what it is, yeah, that we do have some integrity. But what these are strategies, because the course has changed a lot over the past couple of years. There's banks of questions. There's sections of the exam, but this is a strategy to be able to sit down and help you find the answers in the supplemental training material or the videos or in QuickBooks Online itself, or just a way to kind of work through this exam so it's not so daunting to look at 10 sections of the advanced certification and freak out on the first one. So there's a brand new course. You can watch it and go through it in probably less than a half an hour. That's what we try to do in the new School of Bookkeeping, is take these manageable elephants and put them into bite-sized chunks so that you can either watch a specific topic or go through the whole thing. It's really up to you.
And the final thing I wanted to add too is we'll also toss in, I've got blogs about why you want to be a pro advisor. It's so important. Get certified because you get listed. And what we recommend that you search and pretend you're the customer trying to find you. Make sure all your stuff is up to date. Make sure your photo is a nice updated one. So, so it looks like you. Make sure that if you have, the more certifications you have, the better chance you're going to have to float up to the top. Reviews are really helpful. And anyway, we go through, we have courses on that as well. So,
yep. So, yeah, definitely. We'll see you next week. We'll have another topic on Workshop Wednesdays and more resources, and continue the conversation on Facebook, and we'll see you next time.
we'll see you on ABO. Have a great Wednesday.